Okay, so I guess we should kick things off because we're going to try and keep it to within the 30 minutes today because I need to be off. So I've got a call straight away following this one. So I guess we should kick things off with a quick welcome to Steve, because Steve is new to the channel, I guess, new to the podcast. So why don't you give us a quick intro, Steve?
Oh yeah, no pressure. Just put me on the spot there, Nate. Thanks.
No
so yeah, as Nate says, I'm Steve. I'm a solutions architect. I've worked in IT for the last 15 years, and I regularly like to cause security and safety briefs, usually by doing something I shouldn't have done in the first place. So.
Nice. And you work for Air IT, right? So
I do, yeah. So
managed service provider.
I do indeed, yeah. So I work in the MSP space, and to be fair, I absolutely love the chaos of working for an MSP. I don't think I could be a sysadmin. I think I get very bored of my own infrastructure very quickly, and I just love the chaos of digging into other people's.
Yeah, I do miss the chaos a little bit. So yeah, I get what you're saying there. And I think you two met. Different. Yeah, exactly. I think you two met at Workplace Ninjas, right?
Yeah, we did. I think we bumped into each other at a few events, to be fair.
Yeah, I think Scottish Summit was the first time, potentially.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. Cool, okay. Well, I guess introductions out of the way. I think the kind of topic for today's sort of quickfire chat was BYOD, right? So we were going to talk about bring your own device and the kind of challenges, I guess, that kind of brings into the workplace. So I guess to sort of kick things off, does anyone want to sort of kind of explain what BYOD means?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, break your organization's defenses usually, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Nice. Yeah. I like it.
She's very true.
Yeah. So look, I mean, ultimately, BYOD is bring your own device, right? The idea of allowing end users to access corporate data, whether that's through applications like Outlook, when they're connected to Microsoft 365 services, on an unmanaged device, right? Yeah. So whether that is, whether that's just using the application, you are trying to protect data at the app level using something like app protection policies, or maybe you allow BYOD, but in the context of a managed device, so you allow end users to actually enroll their phone into the corporate MDM and control it that way. So there's a couple of different sort of flavors, I guess, of BYOD. And I guess, where do you guys sit with it? Let's start with you, Andy. How do you feel? What's your general feeling around BYOD and when you're sort of talking to clients and recommendations and that kind of stuff?
It's always been one of those taboo subjects, I think, to be honest, with a number of customers I worked with over the years. More so, people like to have work email on their personal phones for some obscene reason. Why? I don't know, because I personally, I would love to have it off my personal phone and have a work phone, but unfortunately, I'm not that lucky yet. But it's the idea of, I can check my email, I can check my Teams messages from my personal device. But then there's also the flip side where a number of people who do that, it's like, well, actually, I'm using it for work. So why don't work pay for my mobile line rental or anything like that? So it opens up a whole new can of worms. But the biggest thing I've noticed over the years is securing those devices. So, I mean, I started off back in the day with BlackBerry. We had a BES server running, and of course, that was a corporate-owned thing. We then switched to ActiveSync, so we had IIS server running and all that good stuff, and the little old orange Nokia things. I can't remember what they were, but it then opened up a whole new can of worms of, I can actually use my personal device to synchronize work email. Yeah. It then falls under the thing of, well, that then means work can wipe my device when they want to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is back in the day of ActiveSync, so you could then send it.
Yeah. It was fairly indiscriminate as to what it wipes as well, yeah.
But at the same time, all they could see is what, device you're using. They couldn't see your contacts. They couldn't do anything like that. So you got those things to bear in mind. But as it's progressed over the years, people like to do everything on their phones now. I mean, it's a mobile-first world. And
that's what I was just going to dig into there. So it's really easy to sort of talk about BYOD and almost slip into that, talking about it from a mobile perspective, and that's because that's kind of what tends to be the sort of like the most common approach now, right? And when we're talking about BYOD, the first thing that springs to mind is mobiles, but realistically, BYOD can still apply to desktops as well, right?
Yeah, because people still check their webmail or something like that, Outlook on the web.
Whether that's Teams via either the web or potentially even the client application, if you're allowing that kind of thing. God help you if you are. Exactly. And Outlook on the personal phone, like you say, and obviously the risks that are associated with that is the obvious stuff. Data leakage, shadow IT, devices getting lost or stolen. So there's a lot of things to think about, right?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. Sorry, you said it was mobiles, and I think it's because mobiles have been the longest established justification for an end user wanting to tap into corporate data. But as you say now, they used to say everybody has 2.4 children, but I think everybody has 2.4 devices these days. And you don't always want to be carrying around. I mean, you yourself, Nathan, you've got your work laptop and you go into events and you're presenting things. Do you take your personal laptop and then try and get onto the work resource for it's really difficult. And most people don't want to carry multiple devices around with them. And it's even more difficult from an employer perspective, because if you're fortunate enough to have employees that do want to work outside of work hours, you don't want to try and inhibit that or, put them off doing that, because it's a great thing for an employer. You've got a staff getting paid for 8.5 hours a day, 7.5 hours a day, whatever, but they're actually prepared to work evenings and weekends. Yeah. So it's a really fine balance between, well, do I stop them from doing that at all because I don't want them to access stuff, or do I want to allow this member of staff to be productive round the clock because they want to do that? You almost want to encourage it without jeopardizing the corporate data. But mobiles is kind of where it started, wasn't it? It was, I want to get my work emails, and then I want to get my work calendar and this, that, and the other, so I know what I'm doing. And but in this day and age, it fully includes any sort of mobile or portable device, laptops and tablets included, I think.
Especially with the launch of things like frontline workers, because they won't have a dedicated machine at work. Yeah. So they will be reliant on their own devices more than anything, because that's designed to be on a tablet on a webmail basis or something like that, using the web apps. So it's you're letting these untrusted devices into your network and access those resources. And that's where those other tools you get built in with M365 will provide some kind of coverage. I mean, I'm still of the believer your best line of defense is only going to be as strong as your weakest link in your setup. So if you do allow bring your own, you've got all the best will in the world to all this extra security. Your security is only actually going to be as good as your access for your bring your own devices, because you're going to potentially have some lax policies there to allow that. Yeah,
totally agree. I think if you're doing BYOD, even if you're doing, if you're allowing BYOD with corporate MDM enrollment, it's never going to be the same as a fully managed corporate owned device, because like you say, you've got to make adjustments. You're not going to be able to be as strict in requiring a certain operating system version. It's just not quite the same. You'll never really secure it in the same way. Yeah, because you don't want your users to enroll their devices as actual devices enrolled in Intune, for example. They're just registered. Yeah, exactly. And as soon as you bring it into Intune, that's more stuff to manage, right? As an administrator, most administrators have already got enough on their hands with the corporate devices they've got to look after. Adding in the personal ones just complicates things even further. And it's interesting you talked about compromise there as well. I'm curious to know where both of you sit insofar as allowing BYOD and where that sort of sweet spot sits for you. Because I know how I feel about it, and I can get into that in a minute, but I'm curious to know how you guys feel about it, and when you're sort of talking to clients and making recommendations on what might be appropriate. How do you look at that?
It comes down to the industry the client works in. So there are certain things that you can actually say, well, okay, BYOD is sufficient. It will provide some kind of security for you. But there are other industries where it's just a flat no. I would say. You really shouldn't be allowing personal devices in. I mean, I've been doing a lot of work with healthcare. There's pros and cons for both. But the more we discussed it with the client, it's probably not the right fit for you, because it then opens up a whole new can of worms on, okay, you as the user own the device, but if it gets broken during work time, because one of the customers I'm working with is in mental health. So if a patient throws your phone across the room, who's liable for that cost?
Yeah.
Is because it's your own device, is it you and your insurance? Is it your employer? So
I've never looked at it from that point of view. That's interesting. I always look at it from the corporate data point of view. But yeah, like you say, if you're using a device in a workplace and the device gets damaged as a result of doing the job, you've then got a whole other fiasco as the employer and the company to think about, other than just the data. It's interesting. I've never looked at it from that perspective.
No, before. I was looking at it from a data point of view first, but then this scenario was thrown up in conversation. It's my own device, whether it's a phone, tablet, or a Chromebook or something like that. But it then gets damaged because you're using it for work. Who then is liable for it? Yeah.
It's a bit like car insurance, isn't it? If you've got third-party domestic and pleasure or whatever on your car, you're fully comprehensive, and you have a crash whilst you're driving for work, your insurer is going to turn around and say you're not covered for work use. Yeah. So I guess it's an interesting. I've never looked at it from that perspective. I guess I agree with Andrew as well. To be fair, for us working with an MSP, it very much greatly depends on the client, the risk factor, and any sort of regulatory compliance around how they handle their data. Regulatory compliance is one of the biggest killers of how we have to structure our compliance policies and stuff like that. But yeah, it greatly varies depending on the customer. And as you move to customers that aren't necessarily being regulated as heavily as, say, like financially or healthcare, etc., it's more about their appetite for farting around. It's a case of, well, users are going to have to do that, and then you get the customer going, well, my users are never going to do that. My users are never going to install company portal and enroll the device. So then you have to have the conversation of, well, we can relax your security to make it easier for users to work round the clock for you, which, like I say, is a good thing if you've got staff that want to do that. And then you've also got or we can just not allow them to do it at all. And then the business has to make a decision on, well, what do I want to do? I think there's a bit of a culture shift as well now to people disconnecting, I think, which will probably help a little bit with the whole BYOD thing, because more and more younger generations, I think it's a generational thing, are saying, well, actually, I've finished at 5:30. You're not getting any Teams messages, any emails, any WhatsApps. I've clocked off, I've disconnected. So maybe that's going to ease the BYOD thing a little bit, potentially.
Yeah, and to be fair, you make a good point. And I think Microsoft have introduced some, I forget what the terminology is for them, but there is some sort of policy in place you can put within Intune now as well to sort of turn off work notifications and all that kind of jazz.
All your notifications.
Exactly. Yeah. There is actually policies you can apply in Intune now for that kind of stuff. So that's a really good point. And look, I mean, generally speaking, I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be industry specific. It's going to be client specific in terms of what kind of level of BYOD you allow. In terms of the sweet spot, I quite often, because you also get those clients that go, well, we're not really too bothered about allowing BYOD, but we don't really know where to draw the line. What is appropriate to draw the line. And I think the sweet spot there is where you're sort of allowing or enforcing web browser access only on desktops, and then obviously feeding all of those sessions through something like Defender for Cloud Apps. Yep. So you can at least control things like downloads or copy and pasting or whatever it might be.
So would that be through the CASB, you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, through the CASB, yeah. And then using something like app protection policies for your mobiles. So at least then you don't need to actually enroll the device into any sort of MDM. All of those sort of DLP controls and whatnot are sort of done at the app level.
Yeah, it's. I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day on MAM and everything, because it's. Well, hopefully everyone is disabling basic auth and preventing ActiveSync from running on mobiles. But let's face it, some people still have that running. Using the Outlook app is great because you've then got that containerization. So everything's segregated. You can then do prevent, copy, paste, blah, blah, blah. But the one gripe everyone is still going on about is contacts. And it's I still have it because you can download your contacts you can sync them one way, but you can't sync them the other. So if you're somebody who's on the road a lot and you rely on your contacts and somebody calls you, you save it, it's not going to save up the way. And that, I think, is still something that still needs to be addressed.
And in that particular scenario that you're referring to, because obviously you can sync your contacts from Outlook to the native contacts app, as long as you're allowing it in your app protection policy.
Exactly.
Which I agree with you. I come up against that one a lot, particularly in like sales environments. Contacts are key, right? They're valuable information. So not allowing people to sync them to the native contacts app is important. But what you're saying here then is, if somebody wants to add their contacts into the native contacts app, that's not syncing back to Outlook.
Exactly.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how you're going to add a contact. If you're at a networking conference or something, you meet somebody, you open up the phone app, you type in their phone, and we click create a new contact, don't you? You're not going to go opening up the Outlook app, going into the contact section. It's just it's not an ergonomic workflow, is it? It's tedious.
No. So that's one of the biggest things I've always come against whenever we're looking at things like MAN policies and blocking the active sync. Okay, I know that's then talking about mobiles again, not Macs or PCs or whatever. I'm with you, Nathan, on that one, where if you're allowing personal devices access, it's the web apps only, and you use the CASB to prevent all sorts of other access.
It's an interesting one where you say about the whole contact sync, though, because that's almost. I've not had that particular discussion before, but it makes total sense, and I can see why some people would be concerned with that. But it's the whole WhatsApp versus Teams discussion. People say to me, "Well, I just want to use that WhatsApp." Okay, well, who are you talking to? Well, my colleagues. Okay, what are you talking about? Well, we're talking about this job. Well, why aren't you talking on Teams?
Yeah.
Why are you talking on WhatsApp? And I'm quite awkward in this sort of respect, I guess. Someone comes to me and says, I'm trying to add a contact to the contact app in my phone, and I want it to sync to Outlook. I'll just add it in Outlook. Add it in Outlook instead. If that's what you're supposed to do, if that's the way it works, that's what you've got to do. If you're going to have a chat with somebody from work about something work related in WhatsApp, why aren't you doing it in Teams? And it's that same conversation. And I get it from a usability perspective, and it would be nice to have that, to be able to add a contact to the contacts app and sync it through. But the reality of it is those are two separate containers, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to, you can see why it will be one-way sync. Yeah.
Yeah. It is personal and work. So your personal contacts add to your regular contacts. Work contacts, well, you should really add them to your work contact list.
Exactly. And how do you then differentiate between, if you were going to allow a two-way sync, you would then end up syncing all of your personal contacts over to your work Outlook contacts?
Well, it's just like, what I did, because I use M365 on my own tenant and everything. Same. So on my mobile, I like the Outlook app. I'm not a big fan of the native mail app on my iPhone, but I just sync my contacts through ActiveSync. I know that's a big no-no, but I just blow it. I'm just going to use that. Yeah. But it is that whole thing of allowing your remote workforce access to work at times when it's, when it suits them as well. So like you're saying, Steve, earlier, you're going to get a good, at least another day a week out of your staff if you allow this. And yet there are other, options, AVD, let people log on through that. If they need a full-blown desktop and they need the apps. But don't let them install the Office apps on the home PC. I remember the whole sales thing when Microsoft 365 first came out. It's, you get 5 activations of Office. You can install it on your home PC and use Office at home. And they had no kind of scope for what they have now in terms of security. So you could then just connect your Outlook from your home PC and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, it would try and do it automatically, because that was a 365 account you'd use to access it. You open up Outlook, it'd be like setting up Outlook. It's like pulling down all your corporate emails.
Exactly. So it's all these things. I think there is that kind of nice to have with BYOD. It's down to, a lot of users will then sometimes complain, if you want me to use my phone for work, you need to pay me for it. It's like, well, okay, it becomes a political issue, not a technical issue then. But it's more of a, if you're going to open up for your employees to use their devices, you got these tools in place. If you want your users to use their personal devices, you need to do something different. I would say it's more of a strategy than anything. But I've had customers who, you know, they need to install the Authenticator app on their personal phone. You know, I've got no issue with Authenticator app. I use it for everything.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will say, well, that's a work app. I'm having that on my personal phone. What does that give you access to? Well, nothing. I think there's that.
That's a really tricky discussion, and so maybe we can touch on that just for a little bit. I know it's kind of slightly off the BYOD path, I guess, but the Authenticator app, you guys must have come up against it. Andy, you just said there you must have come up against it, Steve, where people just will flat out refuse to install the Authenticator app, despite the fact it's just for MFA.
So it's an interesting one. So before the Microsoft Authenticator app, yes, 100%. So Duo multi-factor authenticator app, for example, people will always like, no, I'm not installing that app. Yeah. What I've found with the Microsoft Authenticator app is 99.9% of the users that I come up against have already got it for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So you find there's less resistance to use it because they've already got it. They're using it for the personal Outlook account or something else that they've set up using the Microsoft Authenticator app. Same with the Google one, if you're using the Google Authenticator. So given the fact that we're leveraging an application that people are more likely to already have installed on the phone, resistance is lower, I've found.
Yeah.
When you use something different, if you're like, oh, you need to install Keeper or you need to install Authy or we're going to use the Duo MFA app, that's when people are like, no. And to be fair, I'm similar. So Nathan and I obviously used to work together, and Nathan was in charge of configuring a lot of this stuff for us internally at the MSP that we used to work together at. And I'm that guy that's like, you're not putting an app on my phone. Mainly because originally, similar to yourself, Andy, I use Business Premium for my own personal 365 stuff. And back in the day when Nate was setting up all these policies and stuff, the option to wipe a business data from an Android device, it didn't differentiate between different work accounts. It just saw a work account and it purged it.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, my personal stuff lives on a work account as far as 365 is concerned. So no, I'm not enrolling it. I'm not using it. Now, obviously, it's much cleverer than that. But at the time, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And I think businesses have to kind of accept the fact that if they do want to improve their security posture in this area, they're going to lose some productivity as a result. Because you will get people like me. I mean, back when Nate did this, I took corporate emails off my personal device and I've never had them on since. And for me, that's been absolutely liberating. Like, I work 9 to 5, and when I clock off, if somebody desperately needs me, they can ring me or they can WhatsApp me, and then I'll grab my work device and I'll jump on. But yeah, my missus used to have a photo album of me working around the world. She's got a picture of me working in Iceland. She's got a picture of me working in Poland. Anywhere I was, if I got a work email or something, I'd log on to it. I'd start doing it. I'd start actioning it. And since uninstalling work emails from my phone, I just enjoy my holiday now. So yeah, but I guess there is that trade-off of, and I guess people listening to this are probably going to be looking at starting to implement or improve their security posture around the BYOD stuff, aren't they? And I think the one thing I would like to say is you will lose some people as a result. And I think, like I say, the Microsoft Authenticator app, you probably won't meet much resistance against it these days because most people are familiar with it or they already use it. But if you start going down the company portal route and device enrollment, that's when I think you're going to start to lose people, I think.
And that actually, you make a good point there. Sorry, Andy, I've just jumped in. You make a good point there because you were talking about if you're going down the company portal route. Well, interestingly, company portal is still required for app protection policies on Android devices. Even though you don't need to sign in, even though you don't need to enroll the device, the company portal app is the broker app for app protection. Whereas on iPhone, it's the Authenticator app, which most people will already have for MFA, right? So that's always a little bit of a contentious point that, you know, we come up against with end users. And you make a good point with regards to there is less friction for use of the Microsoft Authenticator app, but it is still there. Like, I mean, I've got a couple of clients that I deal with where they have a whole, holiday users that will just flat out refuse to install it, or maybe they don't even have a smartphone, so they can't install it. That crops up a lot as well. And then you've got to sort of think about mitigations for that kind of thing. And really, I kind of just want to call it out, I guess, on the podcast. Your options for that is to allow things like SMS, but where you want to be careful is making sure that you're going into those authentication methods and scoping it to a group. So making sure that SMS is only usable by the users that absolutely have to use SMS, rather than allowing it for all users.
Yeah, you could use TOTP tokens as well.
Yeah, I was say just give them a token. I mean, I use I forgot what they're called now, but the token 2, I think it was. A couple of those to play around with years ago. And prime example of why you don't want them is because I lost it. So you got all these things to contend with. I mean, I had a customer who didn't want to use the authenticator app. So they then said, right, well, I'll have it phone me, because this is when, you can have the option to phone. What number are you going to have it to phone? So, well, I use my desk phone. Okay, but what are you going to do when you're out the office? I'll forward that onto my mobile. It's like, why not just put your authenticator? It's that people get that pernickety. I mean, this was a company who had lots of processes. It was a German-owned company, so let's just say that much. But they were worried about what personal information you would have by installing the authenticator app on the phone. I think that's the next thing is that, yes, if you enroll your device, you give your company full autonomy over your device. Whereas if you register it, they've only got autonomy over the apps that connect to the corporate data. And so that's that sweet spot, I guess.
Absolutely,
ma'am. But it comes down to preference, industry, and user appetite and company appetite for it, I think. There
is also a cost element, because I talked there about if you're not going to use the Microsoft Authenticator app, maybe you want to scope SMS to a group of users. What I would actually recommend is that organizations issue them a passkey, physical FIDO2 security key. That's what should happen. But then you've got a cost associated with that. And then depending on the size of the organization, that could be a pretty significant cost. And then you go into the conversation of, well, what happens when they lose the keys? Because that's going to happen, and that's going to cost us even more money. I've had those conversations with clients, and, I'm pretty straight with it. And I just say, look, issue them with a key, issue it free of charge as part of their onboarding. If they lose it, they pay for it. Simple as that. I say this quite a lot when I'm having conversations with clients, but we are dealing with adults here, not kids. Like people, these people can I guess, these people should be able to look after a FIDO2 security key. You know what I mean? And use it for authentication. So.
Yeah, you would hope so. I mean, some users I've seen when the work laptops come back in, after they've been offboard in the absolute state of the actual work device itself. But yeah, I guess there are options out there. Like you said, there's FIDO2, there's OTP tokens, there's SMS. Is SMS and voice being deprecated for sign-in authentication, or is that sticking around for a while?
Well, it's been in process deprecation for years, I think. Hasn't it? Quite a long time.
Yeah. So you can still use voice and SMS for MFA. You can actually use SMS for single factor sign-in.
When I was at Microsoft, they still used telephone.
Yeah.
It was like press the hash key, pound key.
The pound
key,
the
American voice would say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I guess it's difficult. I guess the whole goal from our side of the fence has always been to keep corporate data corporate, hasn't it? And at all costs, whilst also trying to make it as accessible as possible. And I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution. I think it's definitely it's a tailor-made suit, isn't it? It's got to be fit for the customer, like you say, Andy. It's got to be fit for the industry as well. And I guess regulatory compliance has to take point on any of that first and foremost. I would guess, and then afterwards, company risk appetite, and then I guess the bottom rung of the ladder is really users. Although user pushback may then obviously rescope and reshape what the business's appetite is, but it's kind of that cascading thing. It's like, right, what are we required to do legally, compliant requirements, etc. Then the business, right, what is the business prepared to do? Okay, well, we're prepared to, allow people to access emails through the email app, but that's it. They're not accessing any of the corporate data. And then users go, well, I need my SharePoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just conscious of time, guys. But I was just taking some notes there because there's some good points to pick up on there that I'd like to dig into maybe in our next episode. We'll get together. We'll continue this discussion on BYOD because I think it's really interesting. And I think we can go a lot deeper with it.
Absolutely.
But a few other bits to pick up on. And in particular, I want to dig into your regulatory use cases and how you can maybe get around stuff like that, but still allow BYOD. So I'm interested in delving into that a little bit further.
Just limit the scope to what it can access.
Yeah, I've got some interesting thoughts that we can pick apart. But conscious of time, so I think we'll get things wrapped up for today. But let's continue this discussion in the next episode.
So next episode's 5B.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Well, look, it was great to speak to you, Andy. It was great to speak to you, Steve. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Cool. Cheers, both.
Take it easy, guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.